mix the mortar and reconstruct the 100-year-old bricks, put them back into place for fear the house may fall down. Welcome to Simplified Sparky Marketing. This story crossed my mind this week, and it's a fantastic story that happened to me many years ago, and it was one of those life lessons and business owner lessons that I learned dearly, that not every client is for you, and some clients will make it through your net, and you won't find out how shit they are until after the job is done. So to start with, this lead came to me as an emergency. I was currently on a job, and whatever I was doing, I got a call from the receptionist. Usually it's an email from a receptionist to notify me of a job, but this time when it's a call, shit's hitting the fan. Something serious is going down. I don't mean like that. Like somebody will urgently need me, or it'll be someone I know, or a client will have like a crazy issue that they need me there and then, and it's like the bat phone. I will then be put on the line to speak to that person. So what's happened is this lady has called up. She has said we are receiving shocks off the taps in the bath. So I was like, that is crazy shit. I was like, that needs to be addressed immediately, if not sooner. So what I did was I packed up the job I was on, drove a few suburbs over. This particular job was in Annandale. So I got to the job, assessed it, pulled out my multimeter and independent earth, and sure enough, it was getting a couple of volts off the tap. And I was like, fuck, that crazy shit. So it was a mother and her child, and that's all I met inside in the house. So not only that, to top things off, it was the fucking weirdest, craziest, dangerous setup I'd ever seen. You know those old strip lights? They've got the cage around them, strip heaters, sorry. They've got the cage around them, and they've got a little pull cord on them. So what you had here was a bath, you had a shower head, and about 200 mil above the shower head, you had this heater in the bath. And I was like, whatever about your shocks and tingles, that thing is coming out. That's not staying there. 240 volts with literally, you can touch it, not even stretching your arm. It was insane. So that was one thing. So I was like, maybe that's something's going on funky with that. So what I did was I went, checked out the circuit, pulled down the breaker, seeing which one was affecting it. And sure enough, it was something to do with that circuit. And I believe something seemed to be pinching onto the copper pipes, which is weird. It's very weird. So I found there was a power point at the back of the bathroom feeding that strip heater. I disconnected the strip heater and I got rid of any voltage or stray voltage. So with further inspection, I looked around the house and I found that there was no adequate earth. It was just relying on a copper piping, old school earthing system. I believe at the time it was 4 mil, if not the bare wire style in this old inner west home. So I was like, okay, for safety measures, I will run a new earth electrode, run that back to the board. And the board was dog shit. So that wasn't on an RCD either. So I put it on an RCD as well, that sub-circuit that was for that power circuit that led to the shocks and tingles, etc. So I did all that, and stupid me, reacting from an emergency, did not quote this up front. And it's something I always say is just like, please quote your jobs up front, even for an existing client, unless it's a like-for-like job. Like I'm guilty of this. I'll put my hand up. If it's an existing client and I've already replaced downlights for them and they're like, Alan, we've had more downlights go, I'll be like, cool, I might just go and do the job, because they know exactly what they paid the last time and it's going to be the exact same price, or maybe it'll have inflated by a couple of percent. So that's cool. But what I'm saying is, if there's a different style job where you're like, they may get a bit of bill shock here, let them know about it. So that was fine. I eradicated any shocks and tingles. For good measure, I installed a good brand new 6 mil earth electrode back to the switchboard and bonded the copper water pipe as well. So the old earthing system was around the side, around the back. It was just shit. So I ran the new one out the front where I could get the water pipe as well. And so what I did was drilled into the cavity these 100-year-old bricks, as you may recall from the start of the podcast. And I threaded my 6 mil earth up the cavity back to the switchboard. Now, doing so, I did this neat as fuck. So as it came out, I actually used a T-box, I believe. So it came out a T-box or straight through box with conduit. So I had one teeing off to the water pipe, and I had the other teeing off to the earth electrode. So it all looked really schmick, really neat. So it was fine. I sorted out all of every issue. No more shocks, no more tingles, no babies getting electrocuted in the bath. Just bear that one in mind. I was fine. So a day or two later, because I ran a shit business at the time, this is probably going back 7 years ago or something like that. I sent the invoice, and a few days later, I was I got a phone call, and I got a phone call from that lady's father-in-law, who's the kingpin. So he rang me up, claiming I had ripped them off. Now, bearing in mind, I would love to dig out that invoice, but I recall it was something around like $500 to $600, something like that. So we're talking new earth electrode, service charge, emergency, drop your tool service charge, and an RCBO, which is way too cheap. It's dirt cheap. It was scratching the surface of cheapness. Like that now would be probably triple the price if I did do that job, but I would have quoted up front or I would have quoted on site. So anyway, he called me up claiming I ripped them off. He scared the fuck out of me. He was like, I'm going to go to a current affair. I'm going to go to fair trading. I'm going to report you. You've ripped people off. Never once did he think that, hang on, this guy has possibly saved my grandson from getting electrocuted in the bath. Thanks very much. It's a cheap price to pay. No, it was all about the dollar with this guy, and he ripped into me, and he scared the fuck out of me because I was just naive. I was a young business owner, and once I heard a current affair and fucking fair trading, I was like, well, what do you think is fair to pay? And he was like, oh, 100, whatever. It was about $200. So anyway, I just bowed down immediately, and I reimbursed the money. Basically, I think his daughter-in-law, would you say, paid the money, and then I had to reimburse the money because I was fucking so fearful of what he would do. And basically what that guy did was he bullied me for being like a naive young business owner and claiming that I ripped them off, even though I'd like done a crazy good job. But not only that, part of his argument was by drilling into his double bricked home, not even his home, his fucking son's home, he claimed that I ruined the building. I ruined their 100-year-old building. I ruined the structure of the building. And it was fucked as far as he was concerned. I didn't realize a 20 mil hole could do that, but apparently it does because this guy's an expert. He's most likely an engineer, I feel. He had that kind of vibe off him. Anyway, then while I was doing the job, something I never mentioned was I remember fishing that earth electrode up the cavity. I actually slid up the tile out the front. And there was this really nice gentleman next door, right smack bang next door neighbor. Bearing in mind this couple had moved into this house probably only a few months. This neighbor kind of stuck his head in. I was kind of like under pressure to get this earth done. So I partially ignored him. And then he flagged my attention and said, hey, I'm looking for some bits and pieces done next door if you've got a chance. And I kind of fobbed them off a little bit, threw him a card. And that, folks, was the silver lining, because that gentleman next door has turned out to be one of my best clients. And he called me about, I think it was something to do with downlights the first time. Then it turned into a switchboard. Then it turned into circuits. Then it turned into a rewire, partial rewire. It turned into several different things. It's thousands and thousands of dollars. So when a door shuts, a window opens. And that was the window right there of like, that was such a shit client. But the silver lining was the neighbor came out of it. So what had happened here as well was I was like, how did this guy get through the net? But how I actually got this lead was also a referral from another Sparky that couldn't be asked. That said Sparky right now, he shut down his business since, but he just couldn't get out to the job, or he didn't want to do it or whatnot. And what I find is, and similar to the Simplified Sparky content, people that come to me is like, they've digested and looked around so much that they're like, okay, this is the right fit for me. This person slipped through the net and basically was a horrible, horrible fit. And I think it was just because the father-in-law got involved. The lady seemed extremely nice, but when push came to shove, she didn't defend me and say, nah, look, fair enough. You know, he's sorted the electrical shock issue. Like, we're not going to get electrocuted anymore. So maybe it's not that bad a price to pay to not die. I don't know. But anyway, what I'm saying is there's a few lessons here. This was a story of lessons. A, not every client is for you. You will get really bad clients. You will have shit experiences along your journey. And as an electrician, starting a business, or even if you're an electrician in business a few years and you don't set yourself up correctly, you will eat shit on a few jobs. And I will fucking guarantee you that there will be jobs where you will not want to be an electrician anymore. And trust me, I've fucking been there. I've sat into the van going, I don't want to be here anymore. And then there's days where you're just fucking counting the money that you made in 2 hours. So it's hot and cold, but you are going to go through some trouble patches as an electrical business owner. I think that's very important to remember that and take from this story. When you have a shitty day, just remember there's going to be a silver lining somewhere to come out of it. The next thing, point B, is not quoting up front. I've mentioned this in previous podcasts, and it can really, really come back to haunt you. You need to be quoting up front. As I said, even if it's an existing client. And point C is there is silver linings to come out of these jobs. And just because one guy's a fuckwit, maybe if you market correctly, you may capture their neighbor with certain specific strategies. That's it from me this week. I just wanted to share that. Not really a rant, more of a story just to kind of say, like, you're not the only one that has bad days. Catch you next week.